Okay, everyone, so this particular video is not going to be the usual video. In fact, this is going to be me coming at you as me, not as Codename Soap, but as Matt, the actual person behind Codename Soap and this particular YouTube channel that you may be watching. The reason I'm coming to you this way is this is going to be like I guess call it like a real talk. This is going to be like my first ever one of these, but I feel that after the events of today, for those of you who don't know, there was a shooting in an elementary school in Newtown, Connecticut. If I remember correctly, there was 28 people who were killed today, and it's terrible. It's atrocious. There's not really, words one can say to describe that. So the reason I'm doing this video is I've been watching the news, listening to some talk radio, reading reports online about the reaction to it and details and things like that. And some of it, I guess you could say angers me. It gets me really frustrated. And the part that, I'm going to go over a couple of things in particular, but some of it that does bug me and really, really makes me mad is the kind of media and religious response to what happened. There are media outlets that choose every time there's a school shooting like this, like back when the Virginia Tech one happened, where, if I remember correctly, it was 2007, where 32, if I remember my figures correctly, 32 people were killed. There are media outlets that blame this kind of behavior on video games. And that's where, for me, that's the thing that bugs me quite a bit. Not just because I play video games or record video games and put it on the internet, but it's one of those, really? That's your choice of why someone decided to get a gun and shoot somebody is because of a video game. To me, that doesn't make sense. To me, that is a really stupid reason. Some people, get a bit more specific and say it's violent video games. It's the Call of Duties, the Halos, the first-person shooters. And I can honestly say that it's absurd. There are literally millions and millions of people who play these video games every single day who don't even have the slightest thought to go out and do something like this. Sure, there are people who are violent out there, who have violent tendencies, but the fact that someone would be like, you know what? After playing this video game, I'm going to go get me a gun and do this in real life. No, it doesn't happen. Do video games inspire people to join the military because they think it's an accurate representation of what military life is like? Coming from someone who has a couple of, military friends, I can tell you that's definitely not the case. In my conversations with them, they've never once said, why did you want to get into the military? Well, it was because I was playing a video game. No, that's not how it is. It's just absurd. It's like some people blame these video games and they pinpoint specific ones, like back in the day it was Grand Theft Auto. That was the hot game. Or back when I was really young, Mortal Kombat was, it showed, and at the time, an amount of violence that wasn't seen in video games. But if you take a step back for a second, almost every video game ever made is violent in one way or another. It all depends on what your perception, what your idea of violence is. Let me give you an example. Super Mario Brothers, one of the most, beloved classic video games of all time. The very first thing you do is kill something in that game, or you get killed by it. Now, some people will wonder what it is I'm talking about. Well, you play a guy, Mario, and within the first 2 or 3 seconds of the game, you're exposed to violence. You jump on a Goomba, the fact that I'm having to explain this is ridiculous, but I feel it's a point that I have to make. You kill this Goomba, this little, almost looks like a mushroom with a beak, and you get points. So from right there, you're instilling the thought of, hey, violence is the answer to complete this game. Now, has that ever inspired someone to just run down the street and start jumping on people, hoping to get coins and points and stuff? I've never heard of that. I've never heard of such a thing in my life. And it just goes, all the way through, like I said, Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, after playing Grand Theft Auto, the very first time I played it, or to be more specific, the third one, I got in my car and I was driving fast. I was like, yeah, this pumped me up. But you get that same kind of thing, like after watching a movie, it's adrenaline. It pumps you up. It gets you moving, gets you going. And there have even been times where, playing a video game, it's like, you know what? I want to go out to a gun range and see, like, how that gun is in real life. But there's a difference between I want to do those things versus I want to go and end someone's life. There's a huge difference. And, it's just, sorry, it's just like, my mind is just full right now of this. It's just, like I said, it's just ridiculous that within, I don't know, an hour or two after this happened, after the reports started coming out, there were people blaming video games for this. And I don't get it. I've never gotten it, and it makes me progressively angrier and angrier and angrier. But video games aren't the only thing to get blamed. Music gets blamed as well. Like, for example, and this is not news to anybody, the Columbine, Colorado school shootings that happened, one of the pinpoints, one of the scapegoats was Marilyn Manson. Of all people, it's like, yeah, Marilyn Manson defies the norm, is against the grain, however you want to put it. And I've listened to Marilyn Manson's music, and there was never once that I can remember where he said, all right, what you're going to do is you're going to suit up in armor, you're going to grab some guns, and you're going to go kill people. I don't recall that particular song at all. And the media, religious right, whatever you want to, call those people, it's just, they try to put the focus on something that is not relevant. In my opinion, the focus, especially when it's a young person, I'm 28, and some people will say I'm a young person, but the kid who did what he did today was 20. So 8 years between myself and him. And from what I remember, he got these guns and all this stuff from inside of his house, his mother's house, who he also killed, if I remember reading the reports correctly. So that begs the question, and this always begs the question of, how did these kids who have done these things, how did these people who did these things get a hold of these guns in the first place? Because that I'm aware of, you can't just, I live in Texas, and if I wanted to, I could walk into like a gun store and buy a gun for home protection purposes, but then it would be on me to keep that gun in a safe location, handle it with caution, so on and so forth. And so this kid, at least today, didn't go out and buy these guns himself. His mom had them in the house. So the fact that this kid was able to get access to them begs the question of why did the mom have these semi-automatic pistols and a rifle, if I remember correctly, in the house to begin with? Do you need that much home protection? If you feel that you do, there's something wrong there. The whole, I'm all for you having guns. It's a constitutional right for you to bear arms. It is. At least here in the States. Around the world, I'm not going to speak for at all because I've never lived in another country. But where's the parent in this case, or the parents in other cases? Because it's not like these kids were out, like, they lived on the street, they broke into someone's house, stole a bunch of weapons, and then went and did this. No. The parents need to be involved. And, saying, hey, how was your day? That's a start. But I'm going to bring this back to video games here. But especially if you're a parent with a young child, and say that kid says, hey, mom or dad, I want to get this Call of Duty game, or this Halo game, or this whatever. Instead of just saying, okay, here you go, do a little research, see what the game's about. It obviously has that mature rating on the front of it for a reason. That a group of people decided that this is intended for an audience that's 17 or 18 and older. And the developers obviously know that as well. So, as a parent, you should wonder, why does my child want this game? Ask some questions. I mean, I don't see why that's such a difficult thing. Now, I'm not a parent myself, at all. I have no kids. But if I did, and if that kid said, hey, Dad, I want you to buy me this game here, I would look at it, and I would question why. I mean, what do you plan on getting out of this game? Are you getting it just because your friends got it? Are you getting it because it's entertaining? I would ask some questions. And if it was something that I thought was questionable, I wouldn't buy it. Because you can't, kids aren't supposed to be able to go into a store and buy mature rated video games. Now, like I said, the kid from today is 20. He can do just about anything he wants except for buy beer, because you got to be 21 to do that. But he could go out and buy weapons. He could buy mature rated video games. He could go see rated R movies. He could do basically whatever he wants. But at the same time, he lived with a parent who had these weapons. And this, as far as I know, this wasn't just a spur of the moment kind of thing. This wasn't just he woke up one day and said, I'm going to go grab these guns and do some very, very terrible things. I don't get it. Because the reason I don't get it is because there's usually never, ever a media outlet or a religious group that says, well, what about the parents? There are a few. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's none. But the majority look for an unreasonable scapegoat when it comes to these kinds of tragedies. When it comes to guns in particular. Like, for example, September 11th, 2001. I don't need to remind anyone what happened there, but I don't remember hearing a thing about, oh, we need to get these video games. There weren't people, rushing out to put a ban on, like, Microsoft Flight Simulator that I'm aware of. I think they may have recalled it for a bit, being the open-minded company that they were. They said, oh, I see that someone could emulate in this game what happened in real life. We're going to pull that from the shelves, if I remember correctly. But what happened was the country, strengthened up security and, stuff like that. They didn't pinpoint to video games or anything like that. And, in a hypothetical way, what if, like, say, a plague or a very widespread disease happened? Would someone go out and blame the game Pandemic for that? Probably not. Or at least I would assume not. They would get with the best doctors and scientists and anyone in a medical field who could isolate and destroy that particular virus or, whatever the case may be. It's always guns. It's always guns. I don't get it. And, like, whenever I said I was talking earlier about, like, the religious right or groups or whatever you'd like to call them, I was reading this one report of a a pastor. I forget his name. I forget where it was. And if I can find it, I'll like add it in the description or something. He basically said that the reason that God didn't stop this from happening was because God doesn't interfere where he's not wanted. Meaning that since prayer isn't allowed in schools, since the Bible isn't taught in schools, that's why this happened. I'm calling bullshit. That is, I mean, even beyond video games, that is stupid. That is one of the dumbest statements I've ever heard. And if I was a parent, and if I was one of these kids' parents, I would be tracking that guy down along with, my priorities would be, first get the shooter who did die. So we got the shooter out of the way, and then go find this asshole. And, I don't know what I would do. I honestly don't know what I would do. At the very least, it would be just this shouting match, and I'd be like, wanting to shake the guy, and, that's just a tendency. Now, what the actual parents in this case want to do, I can't even begin to imagine. I don't even want to say, here's what I would do. I don't even want to think about that, because that is a terrible, terrible situation to be in. And I hope I'm never in it, and I hope no one else is ever in that situation, ever. But yeah, the balls of this guy to say that because God wasn't allowed, he didn't, to quote Samuel L. Jackson, come down from heaven and stop those bullets. There was no divine intervention. But who's he to say that? Who is he to be the voice of God? Now, this may upset some people, but me personally, I am an atheist. I don't believe in God, and haven't for a very, very, very long time. Like I said, that may upset some people, and if it does upset you, trust me, I understand why. As I've said before, I live in Texas. I live in the Bible Belt, and so when people find that out about me, that revelation of, oh, you're different, you're not like me, we don't think the same way, does, rustle some feathers, or some jimmies, as the internet likes to refer. But at the same time, I'm not there to impose my beliefs or lack of them, and I hate it when people do it back. I really do. I'm up for discussions, like point, counterpoint. I love that. Discussions, educated, well-mannered, well-balanced discussions. But like I said, if you watching this, if you don't like the fact that I'm an atheist, and if you're subscribed, if you want to unsubscribe, go ahead. I'm not stopping you, and I totally get it. I totally understand. If now what I am is not your particular brand of vodka, I get it. But for this guy, this pastor, and I really wish I remembered his name, but I'll find it, and like I said, I'll try to put it in the description. For him to think that he is the voice or the mind of God, that's stupid. I mean, I can understand he may be a representative, he may be the on-earth spokesperson, but even if there's a God, if this guy isn't it, because that's, like I said, I mean, I'm one of those atheists who is a little educated on religion. I'm not going to say I'm the most educated, but I don't remember in the Bible, because this guy is Baptist or Christian, one of those. It all kind of is in like a pyramid of what you believe and how it trickles down. But I don't remember that being in there of this guy so-and-so is going to be my mouthpiece and take everything he says as scripture, gospel, however you want to have it. But anyway, he says, because prayer is not allowed in schools and because the Bible's not taught in schools, that's why it happened. who would that not piss off? I mean, if you're a religious person, a believer of any faith, religion, what have you, that's got to piss you off. At least if you're a compassionate person, if you're an understanding person, if you are a human, that statement has to just, that has to get you. And whenever I heard that on the radio earlier today, that was just like, really? That's what this has come to? Is there's, the blame the video games, you can blame movies, but that's the one that got me the most. And I don't get it. Because who's to say that those kids didn't pray before they went into schools, that those kids during the day didn't say a little prayer themselves, or that, who knows, maybe one of those kids may carry a Bible with them and read it from time to time when they have spare time, or read it, before they went, or they're, active in their, youth group or something like that. Who's to say? Not you. And I wish I remembered your name, because... But, on top of all that, the third thing that gets me the most about all of this, and any tragedy anywhere, is when other people, normal people, have their response, have their say-so. Now, what I mean is when people say things like, my thoughts are with you, my prayers are with you, keep those in mind, and, things like that. That's a great idea. It's a great idea. It's a good sentiment. But at the end of the day, it doesn't do a thing at all. I could, think to myself, my thoughts are for everyone in the world to be happy and to be just rich beyond their wildest dreams, so that way they could do whatever it is they wanted to do. And that's, in a way, kind of... Sorry. An alarm go off here. That's, in a way, is the same thing as saying, keep the families in Newtown, Connecticut in your prayers, or Virginia Tech, or New York, or Columbine, or, Louisiana, if you want to go back to Katrina. It's a good sentiment, and I know people mean well. I know they really do. But why not get out there and do something? Now, I'm not saying drive to Connecticut or fly to Connecticut and do something. But at the very least, maybe donate some money to the families, because I'm sure there's going to be some kind of, fund that pops up. And at the very, very least, they could use some money right now to, go, help, one, rebuild the school, because I'm sure it needs it, to maybe help some security, maybe even have some kind of, therapy group, in a way, for people to talk about what they're feeling, to get their, emotions out there, because they're going to need it. They are definitely going to need it, because there's no way that someone, I can imagine anyway, that they're just going to keep it all inside and not look to somebody for some sort of help. So, it's, the thing that really, like I said, that gets me is that some people do the keep them in your thoughts, keep them in your prayers, whatever. And some people will kind of chastise or be angry at or what have you with people like me who say that's not enough ever for any situation. It's, in this case, like I said, donate some money or, something, give these people something, not a thought, but a thing, a something to help, whether it's in the immediate or in the long term. A thought is not going to help. A prayer is not going to help. A wisher is not going to help these people or anyone. There's got to be something tangible. Now, if you actually, even if you don't donate money and say you drove or flew there and actually tried to comfort and console these people or help out in any way you could, that's what I'm talking about. That's good. Or, like I said, I'm sure there's going to be like a fund or something that pops up. Donate some money to it. I mean, help. Actually help. Like I was saying with, September 11th, Hurricane Katrina. Those were disasters that actually took down, structures, killed people. That's one of those things that a large flow of money has to go back into to help, at the very least, physically rebuild, things like businesses, houses, things like that. And sorry, I'm just all over the place in my head, and I know this video is not the norm. I know it's a long video, and I know it's going to upset some people. I know that. But at the same time, it's one of those, I felt compelled to at least get something out there, starting with the video game thing, because if you're familiar with this channel, I play video games. I've played video games for a very, very long time. So for me, they're just one of those things that I do. It's entertainment. It's a release. It's, and so starting with that, and then going to that pastor, preacher, and then the thoughts and prayers and well wishes. Those things are what bugged me, what got me angry. And I hope that this invokes some kind of response, whether it is anger or happiness or something, because for you to remain neutral and everything, you can't really. You can't just stay in the middle. You've got to have some kind of response to it. And I would like to hear it. I would like to hear any response you have to any thought in this video, any statement that I've made. And if at some point I've, angered you, made you happy, if I've contradicted myself in some way, please let me know. But as I've stated in this video, and I've stated in other videos, I'm not looking for an argument at all. I don't argue with people. I try not to argue with people in real life, and I'm sure as hell not arguing with people on the internet. Because at the end of the day, that accomplishes nothing. Zero. And if you want to have a discussion, let's have it. Please. I'm open to discussions. I'm open to learning. I'm open to hearing other people's thoughts and opinions on not only this, but anything in general. But for this sake, specifically this. So, that's going to be it for this. I don't really have much else to say. I've been rambling on for about half an hour now. So if you've watched this whole thing, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for hearing me out. But yeah, that's going to do it for today, tonight, tomorrow, whenever you're watching this. Hopefully you take care of yourselves, and we'll see you later.